right, I think we're live. All right, hey, welcome back to another edition of Real Take Sports Talk, the show we're keeping it real. Goes right. I'm here live with Andrew. We are going to be breaking down and previewing the NFL draft here with you guys over the next hour, 2 hours. Who knows how long we're going to be here. I don't know. I think my mic might be switched. Give me a second to switch that to the right mic. Yep, I was. But I'll give you guys a second to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the NFL draft, and we can't talk about the draft, Andrew, without talking about the quarterback. So right now we have slated 5 quarterbacks that are potentially very likely going to be going in the first round, kind of reminiscent of that 2018 draft class where we saw those 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. But a little different. The expectations are not the same. We're going to be talking about those quarterbacks. We're going to be talking about non-quarterbacks. But let's kick it off, Andrew. NFL draft is on Thursday, just a few days away. Biggest night of the offseason. What are you looking for? What's your biggest storyline going into draft night? Oh. Hold up.
Seemed like they're in love with Zach Wilson. So, but then at number 3, dude, San Francisco traded up for that pick, and you would assume it will be Justin Fields. But recently, like what's been going on the past couple of days, people think that they're going to go in an entirely different direction, and they're going to pick between either Trey Lance or Mac Jones. So it's crazy how a dude who at one point was considered the second best prospect, some dudes, even myself included, had him as the best prospect quarterback in this class, and how he fell from that 1-2 range to potentially 5.
Yeah.
That's my biggest.
Yeah, that's so crazy when you think about it, because he was literally supposed to be for a lot of people, he was supposed to be number 2. I had him at number 2. I know everyone basically, all the experts, quote unquote, had him at number 2. It was a no-brainer considering what he did, not just last year, but the year before especially. So we're going to watch that. We're going to talk about that actually in a minute. But for me, other than the quarterbacks, it's going to be these wide receivers. Because, Andrew, this literally might be the best receiving class we've ever seen in the NFL draft. Like, this is a monster class. And even if you include someone like Kyle Pitts, who's a tight end, but even you, who's mentioned before we went on the air, he's also kind of a hybrid. He can play that receiver role if you need him to. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing to watch. That's going to be the biggest storyline. If we're looking for something to kind of remember, I think, coming out of this draft, it's just we're going to be looking back and seeing, like, wow, there were so many great receivers in this draft. But we'll talk about that. And actually, let's get into that specific point. We mentioned quarterbacks. Andrew, who do you think offensively is the best non-quarterback in this draft right now?
I think just from a pure talent perspective, given his size, his speed, strength, arms, and the fact that he's coming out of the SEC and he's battle tested because of that, is Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kyle Pitts is great. For me, I think it's Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith is, and there's no disrespect to Kyle Pitts, but I think he's the best receiver in this draft. He's the best hands. He has a good body. He maybe needs to bulk up a little bit. Then he'd really become a monster. But the production year in and year out has been just amazing. And he's gotten better every single year. And last year he went off. We saw him with the 300 yards performance almost in the national championship game in one half. So I think he has a good chance of being remembered as the best player of this group. And I think right now, for me, as far as non-quarterbacks go, he's the best non-quarterback player. And I think he's going to make a big impact on whatever team he goes to. There's talk that someone might trade up to get him. There's also talk that he's going to be taken in the top 5, top 6, top 7. You and I kind of differ on that, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I think Smith is good. Kyle Pitts, obviously, is great. Penei Sewell from Oregon, he's the offensive tackle. He's
best
really
offensive lineman.
Best offensive lineman. He's like that cornerstone of your line type of guy. He can come in and just solidify any issues you have and think we both have the Bengals taking him, which is not a surprise considering how much they need help on the offensive line. We'll get into our mock drafts as well. Just a minute, Andrew. Let's get to some quarterback profiles because everyone loves to talk about the quarterbacks. Everyone loves to talk about the quarterbacks, where they're going to go, who they're going to go to, why they're going to go there. So let's talk about it. Ignoring the draft, like the teams for a second, let's just talk individually about these quarterbacks. First, let's start with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has, for a long time, been the consensus number one pick. It seems like ever since his freshman year at Clemson, he's been the consensus number one pick for whenever he comes out, and that's due to his leadership. He's got the prototypical talent, the prototypical size for a quarterback. He's got the prototypical look, as like people like to talk about. He also has had the prototypical production that you want out of a starting quarterback. The fundamentals have always been solid. He's a leader, and it seems that he's been like the consensus number one pick for so long that people kind of have underlooked him going into this draft. You haven't heard a lot of talk about Trevor Lawrence, and honestly, why would you? Because it's a no-brainer that the Jags are going to take him, right? But we did see him, we did see him kind of take maybe a little bit of a step back towards the end of the season. He didn't end the season on a great note against Ohio State. So, what do you think about Trevor Lawrence, his prospects? He's obviously going to go to the Jaguars. We know that's all but true at this point. So, what do you think about him in the NFL? How's he going to transition, and what does it look like?
I don't necessarily. My biggest thing on Sunshine has been, even since the first day he got there, I think there's a lot of stock that's put into the ACC relative to the other two conferences. The other two Power 5 conferences that are known for their physicality and their defense, which is the SEC and the Big Ten. With that being said, he did put up really good numbers. There were games, like he did show up in big games, everything like that. However, the one thing that didn't sit well with me when it came to watching him play was outside of the game against Alabama his freshman year, which I don't think he really won that. I think the old adage, the game is won in the trenches, and I think those four defensive linemen who came back to school in Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, and Clelin Ferrell, they won that game. They made Tua's life hell, as shown by the pick six that Tua threw in the first quarter, which basically put that was it. Like, you could tell when Tua threw that pick six, that was it. So my biggest thing with Sunshine is he's got the size. He does have the ability, the arm strength, all that stuff speaks for itself. My thing when it gets to the NFL is this is a big boy game, and I don't know if he's going to be as successful. Don't forget, dude, he's going to be the number one pick, which means he's going into a situation that, out of all the other situations in football, we're not going to count the Lions because that's the worst place you can go. Like, what historically, that's one of the worst places you can go. But just based off of recently, it's one of the worst places you can go was Jacksonville. They've been rebuilding for the past couple of years. And, brought in a new coach, new GM, everything like that. Though the coaching staff is all new. They did have Chark. We talk about Minshew every week. He didn't really have a lot around him. So he's not really going to have that much around him, but they're going to be able to put some pieces around him in this draft. So we're going to see. Don't forget, that's a division. Indy's always tough. Tennessee won the division last year, and Houston, if he wins any division games, it'll be against Houston with that dumpster fire they got going on over there. But it's not going to be an easy transition for him by any means. I mean, don't forget, dude, with that number one pick, you got a target on your back. And given the fact that he has been so highly touted for so long by so many people, as they're comparing him to Andrew Luck and everything like that, don't think for 1 second there's not DBs. Don't think for 1 second there's not defensive linemen or defensive ends that are just, waiting to humble his ass. Because essentially, outside of a few games that he lost in college, he really hasn't been that humbled. And given his remarks that he made about he doesn't have the chip on his shoulder and everything like that, like that confidence, you're going to have guys that are going to take that as arrogance and they're going to want to humble him. So that's what I have to say about Sunshine. Not easy for that number one pick oftentimes. So we're going to see.
I mean, yeah, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out. I mean, I know you're not as high on him because of your you have a bit of a bias against Clemson. Full disclosure there.
It's not
But
just that. It's the ACC as a whole. It's the ACC as a whole.
okay, well, we can have that discussion later. But I think that I think a lot of times for people this level of complacency does set in, and what I will say about Trevor Lawrence is that he has been that consensus number one pick for so long that I understand why people may have a problem or may see him as not as not as I guess notable, or not as he doesn't stand out as much as some of the other guys, because there's been so much talk about other people. There's been so much talk about where Trey Lance is going to go, where Justin Fields is going to go, Zach Wilson, how much he's progressed since the end of the college football season. So we've heard talk about all of these different guys, all of these different quarterbacks, but we haven't heard too much talk about him. And I think that's why he's going to surprise a lot of people when the season starts. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. He's going to come out and he's going to do what he's done for the past 3 years, and he's going to help Jacksonville win some football games, and I truly do believe that. And he's the best quarterback in this draft that I have rated. He's the best quarterback as far as size, I think, and talent, and the ability to come in and play right now, and he has the highest ceiling. All of those factors together make him the best quarterback and the person who deserves to be taken number one overall. And I think that's pretty much it at this point. Another quarterback that we has been talked about, but we are not really sure where he's going to go. Trey Lance. Trey Lance, of course, played at North Dakota State. He didn't have that great competition. North Dakota State only plays their opponents in their conference, and then they play whoever they play in the AA championship playoffs. So he's coming out. He is a bigger quarterback, very mobile. He's got the ability. He's got a huge arm, got the ability to throw the ball wherever he wants to, basically on the field. Accuracy has been a noted problem, and of course he plays in North Dakota State. That's a big flag for some teams. He doesn't play in a pro-style NFL-ready offense, and with playing a lot of collegiate powerhouse teams. But I do think that the comparisons that some people have had to people like Nick Foles or to Carson Wentz and Josh Allen, I think those are apt with a guy like this. I think Trey Lance has the ability, and he's a leader, and he doesn't turn the ball over. That's the thing. You can say to talk about his accuracy all you want. Dude threw one interception in his career at North Dakota State. So he doesn't turn the ball over, and he's got the ability to run. 14 touchdowns last year, or 2 years ago when they played their full season. 14 touchdowns on the ground, 1,100 yards rushing. This dude is a beast. So he can fit into this new NFL offense, the one that Lamar Jackson, many are saying, kind of helped bring about and popularize in the NFL. So I think he's going to be great. So what do you think about Trey Lance? What are your thoughts on him?
So my thing on Trey Lance is the sample size. He did only throw one interception. The sample size, though, I don't think is big enough, especially given the talent that he played against. The talent, I think, is definitely there, but I also think he is a project. You did mention his accuracy at times is a little bit of an issue. That's something that he's going to have to work on. So I do think he is a little bit of a project, but I mean, the talent is definitely there. The Josh Allen comparison. Remember, the accuracy was the biggest thing with Josh Allen coming out. That's why Josh Allen fell as low as he did. And, if he's got that work ethic and he has that drive to be great, given his other physical tools that he has, there's no reason why not with better players on his team. Think about it. This is the same thing with Josh Allen coming out. Josh Allen was, he's good. He's got the body. He's got the arm strength. The questions are the accuracy and the level of competition. Well, you know what? When everything was evened out and he did have a receiver, you put a team around him that is on the same level as the team he's playing against, you saw the kind of player that Josh Allen could become. So I think this kid is a little bit of a project. He's 2 to 3 years away from, I think, being that kind of an impact player. But overall, I do think he is a really good prospect, and wherever he ends up, I hope the best for him. It's just he's going to have to sit the next couple years. Like, whatever fan base gets him, they can't expect what the Jets did with Darnold, which was throw him into the fire and see how he does, because that's a recipe for disaster, especially with one of these teams that's picking high, who doesn't necessarily have the quarterback situation figured out. You know, if he goes to a place like Atlanta, he goes somewhere where the quarterback situation is kind of there. He could learn from a veteran, and he could become something. So we'll see. We'll see with Josh, not with Josh Allen, with Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance as a prospect, but
Yeah, there's nothing not to like about Trey Lance. Before we move on, I need to do something. Just one bit. Okay, I think we're back. Are we? Let's see. I hope we're back.
I hope so too.
I hope so too. To believe we are. Let's check.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
We're still having some sort of problem here.
To believe we are.
It's weird.
Hope so too. To believe we are.
I can hear myself. All right, I think we're just gonna go with that we're back, and then I'll figure this out later. This is why I need to get a producer. This is why we need to we step up our game. I need to get a producer. But yeah, I think we exhausted Trey Lance at that stage. So let's talk about another quarterback, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson from BYU started off the season. He had a pretty solid season. BYU started the season undefeated. A lot of it had to do with him. Wilson, he had his best season this past year. I think he had 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, completed almost 74% of his passes. The dude he balled out. That's unquestionable, right? He balled out. Now, what a lot of people are pointing to, however, though, is the year before. Year before, he kind of had a very iffy season, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, didn't pop off the charts as far as the numbers. His production was very low. A lot of people say that his accuracy at times was weird, but he proved them wrong in his last year at BYU. Now, Andrew, was he just a one-year wonder, though? Was he a one-hit wonder, or does Zach Wilson have staying power as a starting quarterback in the NFL? Should he deserve to be what a lot of people assume he is, the second best quarterback in this draft?
I'm rooting for all these guys. I want all of them to be successful, but we all know that can't happen.
Yep.
You know what? I think the dude with the biggest bust potential outside of Mac Jones.
Yep.
Is Zach Wilson. And the reason being is that he did lead them to a great season. BYU, outstanding season. With that being said, though, he did have some interception problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to recall the talent he was playing against was not necessarily that of the Big Ten, the SEC, or even the Big 12, where, they don't play defense. And
hey, Coastal Carolina had a great season.
Coastal Carolina did have a great season. That game went down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really want Zach Wilson I really want him to be successful, but I mean, just given how it looks like things are going to turn out, he has, he's got a strong arm. People were, everyone was oohing and ahhing because he was in the shorts. He was making the throws on the run to wide open receivers because at the pro day, no one is covered. He was throwing to his dudes, not dudes that he's, dudes that he's familiar with. And I mentioned this before, dude. He's going to go to the Jets, and going to the Jets is where your career goes to die before it even starts.
Yeah, big facts.
So that's the only reason why I think the kid has potential to be great, but just given where he's projected to go, and I think Sam Darnold was more talented. And
coming out, you think Sam Darnold was more talented coming out than Zach Wilson?
Oh yeah. And just given what I've seen from Zach Wilson, like I said before, I think I said this either a week ago or 2 weeks ago, those throws that Zach Wilson was making at Pro Day against where no one was covering his receivers, right? We've seen Sam Darnold make those in a Jets uniform on Sundays with a no-name receiver being covered by a dude who you could name on defense. We've seen Sam Darnold make those throws at MetLife Stadium.
But we've also seen him make a lot of bad throws at MetLife Stadium.
But that's the point, is Zach Wilson, he's turnover prone just like Sam Darnold was. I don't think he's the same talent as Sam Darnold. So I think I hope the best for him, but just given based off of what I've seen, like what I saw out of him in college, just based on the tape and everything like that, and given based on where he's projected to go, I don't see his career panning out as well as a lot of people might think. He might be a very talented quarterback. He might get his real first shot when the Jets decide that they messed up with this one too, to move on from him, and a team like Washington decides, or not even a team like Washington, a team that's any bit competent decides we're going to give this kid a chance.
Yeah, you know who he kind of reminds me of, and it's something that I thought about as he kind of rose up the draft charts. He kind of reminds me a lot of Josh Rosen. He reminds, and I'm not even saying as his mechanics or his ability, or I'm just talking about his kind of rise to the number 2 quarterback in the draft. It reminds me that of Josh Rosen. A lot of people beforehand had thought Josh Rosen was going to be a first-round pick. Zach Wilson during the season was kind of like that borderline. He was like, yeah, he might be a first-rounder, but he's more of a second-round guy, right? And that's what I think he is. I'm not going to lie to you. I think Zach Wilson is a second-round grade on a quarterback who, at a time where a lot of teams need a quarterback, he's overvalued than where he would be otherwise. And on top of it, there's a lot of hype surrounding him and surrounding what he could be. And that's what we hear a lot. Oh, well, this guy has the higher ceiling. This guy has the lowest floor type of guy. And it all depends on, what you're looking for and what your ambitions are for your quarterback. Do you want the guy who has the lowest ceiling? Do you want the guy or highest ceiling, lowest floor? Is that what you're going for? Or you want the guy with the most potential? And that's what I think the allure is about someone like Zach Wilson. Why I think that's a mistake, and I will let you say something in a minute, but why I think that's a mistake is because what you're doing now is you're inflating their value. You're inflating someone like Josh Wilson, or Zach Wilson's rather, value as a player, and instead of drafting who you probably should take at number 2, the person who we know starting, if he started today, would be the second best of all these guys, at least, it would be Justin Fields. But instead, they want to go in that direction. It'd be different, I think, if Zach Wilson fit the Jets' offense more. But I don't even think it's an issue of that. I legitimately believe the New York Jets think that Zach Wilson has the best potential, which I don't even agree with that. But again, he could be great. And what I don't like though is for people to be definitive at this state and be like, oh well, I don't even have to explain why Zach Wilson's the second best quarterback in the draft. He just is now. That doesn't make any sense because literally, what has changed, Andrew, from the last snap of the college football season to today? We've had a few pro days. Like you're telling me, oh, you said he's throwing wide open receivers. Oh, how is that going to make a difference to what I've seen on film? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Exactly, and that's the point. Is I don't know how quarterbacks that haven't played in months. There hasn't been a single snap. Hasn't been a single incomplete, a single completion. There hasn't been anything. No games have been played, and yet dudes are sliding up and down, and it hasn't made any sense to me. I can't explain it. They talk about how, some teams meet with one dude and they like his demeanor, they like his approach and everything like that. Listen, I can tell you firsthand, anyone who listens to this was a Tennessee Titans fan. We drafted a guy a couple years ago. We drafted that offensive lineman out of Georgia based off of a Zoom interview because we didn't get to see him, based off of a Zoom interview and tape.
Oh, yeah, your first round pick last year. You just cut him, didn't you?
And look at how that turned out for us.
We
sent him to Miami. So I think we traded him to Miami, and then they cut him, just because now he's trying to be a rapper. So you can go, you look at these Zoom interviews and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, the tape. You got to look at the tape. Got to look at competition. You got to look at all this other stuff. A one-on-one interview can only tell you so much about a player. A one-on-one, the kid could be the nicest kid. He could tell you he's a hard worker, but unless you get to see it firsthand, you don't know. And that's what I think is part of the thing with Zach Wilson. Is Zach Wilson, he might be the hardest worker we've ever seen. We don't know. But there's a lot of factors that are factoring in. Like, he's going to go to the Jets. The Jets historically have not been good with quarterbacks. Who's been the most successful one in the last, 20 years? The most successful one was Sanchez. And his success was based off of he had an elite defense. Imagine
if Sam Darnold had that defense.
Yeah, exactly. Sanchez's success was based off of he was playing on one of the most talented defenses of the last decade with that New York Jets when they were going to the AFC Championship. So I don't know. We're gonna see with Zach Wilson. I hope, for his sake, You mentioned floors, dude. You mentioned taking a player because because his floor is higher, but his ceiling might be lower and everything like that. Well,
with Zach Wilson, it's the opposite for me. I think his ceiling's high. I think people think his ceiling's higher, but his floor is actually very low.
It's interesting because when I look at him as, I'm not gonna call him a broke man's Darnold. I don't think he's as talented as Darnold. And now, mind you, the Jets did make some moves. They did bring in Corey Davis. So they do have that, I think, the 23rd pick. So they're going to make – and they might even trade that pick to get a couple second-rounders because this is a deep draft in terms of defense. So they might be able to – in terms of defense, they might be able to build their defense with a couple second- and third-rounders if they do trade out of that 23rd pick. But – we're going to see. I mean, as I said before, dude, the Jets, that's where a lot of quarterbacks' careers go to die before they even start. So,
yeah, and the fact that they're picking Zach Wilson, it's look, I want, like we said, we want everyone to succeed. If in perfect world, all of these guys will succeed. We're not rooting against anyone. The thing is,
it just can't happen, dude. Even the most perfect prospects have failed. We've seen them. There were dudes that were the most perfect prospects that failed. So
I wish Zach Wilson the best, but I will say this. The fact that a lot of his draft stock has been inflated over just the past 2 months, the fact that he only showed a lot of he showed most of his promise came in one season, the fact that, his like I said, his floor is a lot lower than a lot of quarterbacks. The ceiling is kind of undefined. It depends on whatever you want to say at the moment, really. And the fact that he's going to the Jets, all of those things are not a good combination. If he was going to a team like the Patriots, I think he would be in a better position if he was going to a team that like where he could wait kind of, or maybe with a better infrastructure around him. I think the Broncos would actually be a good place because they have so much talent around them. Whoever's going to go to the Broncos is going to do well. But man, I'm just saying Zach Wilson. It's just I don't want him to be a bust, but that pick with the Jets has bust written all over it.
And we'll be in the same position. Just if you're a Jets fan, you know what? We'll be in the same position 3 years from now talking about Zach Wilson wasn't the one. You know, we'll be here 3 years from now.
Yeah.
The next Jets quarterback could be graduating from high school this year. We'll be here 3 years from now, and the Jets will be in the same position. You know, this quarterback didn't work, so back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't end up that way. I hope that Zach Wilson can bring the Jets out of irrelevancy. Moving on, Mac Jones. Our favorite quarterback in this draft. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. Mac Jones is going to be drafted in the first round, which I think is kind of criminal. But I digress. Mac Jones has shown that he has the talent when there's pieces around him to be good. Mac Jones showed that he has the ability when great pieces are around him to win. Mac Jones has shown when he has great pieces around him, he doesn't mess it up. And look, what do you have? 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year? That's great. He also had the 2 best receivers in college football. He also had the best running back in college football. He also had one of the best defenses in college football.
And it's nice when your offensive line had 2 dudes that, you had a couple dudes on that offensive line that are probably going to be first round or second rounders in this draft and next year too. So that helps too.
Right. And the reason I think Mac Jones, again, he's very similar to Zach Wilson in this way that I think his stock has been very, very grossly inflated over the past few months for very little reason. If you look at Mac Jones, the accuracy can be a problem at times when he's not throwing to his great receivers that he had at Alabama. When you look at him, he tends to lock on to receivers, which is a big no-no. That is something that should frighten any scout immediately. And if I can see it, trust me, there's no excuse for NFL scouts to see it. He locks onto receivers very, very easily. Almost doesn't go through his progressions, gives up on his progressions a lot, which you cannot afford to do. Which is the big reason why people like Trevor Lawrence were rated like number 1. The reason he's been number 1 so far, like for a long time, Andrew, is because Trevor Lawrence he never fails to go through his progressions. He goes through his progressions almost every time. And that's like the bare minimum you need to be a starting quarterback. And if Mac Jones doesn't have that by now, it's a huge issue for him. Also, the footwork can be sloppy at times. You know, look, I'm just going to say it. I know you're thinking it too. He's an Alabama quarterback. Quarterbacks from Alabama, not named Tua, not named Jalen Hurts. Look, they've had some success, some semblance of success,
Listen,
but we don't
even
know what Jalen Hurts and Tua are, though. They've only had 1 year. So,
by the way, the Jalen Hurts thing, by the way, even though he did spend all those years at Alabama, that 1 year in Lincoln Riley's system, I think helped him as a quarterback.
Look, and I'm just going to finish up by saying this. I think, there's talk that the 49ers, like Mac Jones, their target at 3. We'll talk about that, but I do think it's so misguided to take him at 3. I think to trade your first-round pick, to trade a few first-round picks to go up and get Mac Jones as your starting quarterback is not that much of an improvement on someone like Jimmy G. It makes no sense considering the quarterback that we're going to talk about next, who's still going to be on the board. So, Andrew, Mac Jones, give me your profile on him. What does he do good? What does he do bad? Does he deserve to be a top 3 quarterback?
He's a pocket passer, dude. All the things you mentioned before with the everything you mentioned before with he locks onto receivers and everything like that. He doesn't have the best footwork. Now, people, a big thing that I heard that a lot of people love is he's got the photographic memory and he's got the first in, last out mentality, something like that. Like he's a student of the game. So a lot of people have been like, and then there's been the whole, I've heard people that have been like, out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, most of them are mobile. There's only one of them that's not, and he just won a 7th Super Bowl and everything like that. And
Mac Jones isn't Tom Brady.
yeah, exactly. Mac Jones. I don't think Mac Jones is Tom Brady. I don't want to knock the dude. It's maybe he definitely has a higher floor, given that he did spend 4 or 5 years in college, and he did spend all that time playing behind Jalen Hurts and Tua and everything like that. He had to earn his spot, so maybe he might be more of a polished player. He's either a 4th or a 5th year senior, so he is an older player. But the point is, when you have all that talent around you, dude, you don't have to be as good. And when you get to the NFL and everything like that, you're not your wide receiver 1 on a lot of Sundays is not going to be able to just unless you're playing with Tyreek Hill, you're not going to be able to have your wide receiver 1, your wide receiver 2 just off the line of scrimmage just beat whoever's in front of them, because they all run 4.2s over there at Alabama, all those the wideouts. You're not going to have that luxury, so you're not going to be able to lock on to receivers. Also, unless you go to Tennessee or unless you go to one of these teams with top 5 running back, you're not going to be able to hand the ball off to a running back who's just going to be able to, just give you 8+ yards a carry every single time. And unless he goes to the Colts or unless he goes to one of these teams with just, an insane O-line, he's not going to have that luxury either. So I know Shanahan is the quarterback whisperer. He is kind of like the prototype of Jimmy G, but we were talking about this before, dude. Think about why Shanahan, the 2 Super Bowls that Shanahan has been to, Shanahan has pretty much had the same type of quarterback. He's had not really a mobile quarterback. He's kind of had a game manager, one in Matt Ryan, the other one in Jimmy G. And you saw how that worked for him. He didn't have that improviser, that guy who could extend a play.
It didn't work for him.
That. So that's why I think he would be stupid not to go after the next guy we're going to talk about. But then again, the fact that the next guy that we're going to talk about is not even be considered by the Jets is beyond me.
Yeah. We'll talk about Fields in just a sec. But last point I want to hit on Jones, and I'll let you finish up on him too. But the idea that, yes, Mac Jones might he might be initially better than someone like Justin Fields, Trey Lance as his rookie.
Because his floor is definitely
his floor is high. He does but even that I don't know how much I buy that, because the fundamental mistakes he makes when he locks on receivers. And look, it's easy to do that when you're throwing the ball to Devonta Smith and Waddle, right? It's really easy to do that. I'm not saying that like of course, like they're gonna go up and get it, but doing that and not showing I don't know whether it's the lack of ability or lack of desire to go through your progressions. But if you don't do that in the NFL, you're going to have a very short career, my friend. A very short career. There have been, and look, I mean this in no disrespect. It's just an honest thing. I think Mac Jones, he reminds me of another Alabama guy that came out a few years ago, and A.J. McCarron. He reminds me a lot of A.J. McCarron. And look, A.J. McCarron, say what you want about him, but I think he's a very good backup quarterback who we haven't seen a lot, but I think he has a lot of potential. But I think A.J. McCarron, it was initially not ready to be an NFL starter, and sometimes that hinders your career. I think we're going to finally see what happens if A.J. McCarron was given a shot to become that starting quarterback right out of the gate for the team when Mac Jones, I think, eventually goes at 3. But we'll talk about that. Andrew, your final thoughts on this, and then we'll...
Kind of reminds me a little bit of, there's another one too, Greg McElroy. We saw how that turned out for him. Don't get me wrong, dude.
Greg McElroy, I think the Jets learned from their mistake there.
Greg McElroy is great on TV, dude. He is great at what he does in the media. He is great at what he does at ESPN. But on the football field, yeah, it's... Once again, dude, it's very easy. It's very easy when you're playing in college, which college, dude, college is not the best football. All the broken plays, college is not the best football. Very rarely are you going to think about it, dude. All the dudes that play in the NFL, they're in the NFL for a reason, because they were the best player, or even these dudes coming out of these small schools, dude. Think about these dudes that make it from the small schools. They were studs at those small schools. Like, they were the best player on their team and they just get to the NFL and they're another guy.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. But someone who I think you and I can both agree is not just another guy is Justin Fields. And we've chronicled the baffling drop in stock for Justin Fields over the past few months. Was the number 2 quarterback on the last day of the college football season. Now he's some have him at number 4 even, which is crazy to put Justin Fields right above Kyle Trask, but nevertheless, that's where he is, and it looks like he might even have a drop into the 10s. We'll get into that in our mock draft, but Justin Fields has dropped, Andrew. You and I both have him as the consensus number 2 quarterback in this draft. It's not even I think up for discussion. I think if you watched the games last year, if you watched the games the year before, you would know that Justin Fields does all the things you need to do to make him, not himself successful, but the people around him successful. He's that type of guy. He will elevate those around him. So the fact that he's not in the conversation for the Jets, the fact that he's apparently, according to reports today, out of the conversation at number 3 for the 49ers, what does that mean about Justin Fields? What does that mean about the evaluation on him? Is that wrong?
You know what I think it is? First off, I'm going to start it by saying that there's been stories that have been coming out about Justin Fields, talking about his work ethic. They've questioned his work ethic. You heard the epilepsy. He suffers from epilepsy. Like, you've heard stuff like that. With the whole work ethic thing, have you seen that dude? That dude's fucking shredded. Like, there's the work ethic part. I don't buy that.
0 cents. 0 cents. Yeah.
The epilepsy thing, dude, what is he, 20, 21 years old? I mean, he'll probably grow out of it. You know what I mean? Like, he'll get to the NFL. They'll get him with doctors and everything like that. He'll grow out of it. If the epilepsy was such a concern,
then he wouldn't even be. You still wouldn't even have a first round grade on him. Like
he wouldn't have had the success that I don't think he would have had the same success.
That's just bullshit excuses that these teams want to do to justify their bad choices. But go on.
But the point with Justin Fields, I think this is a result of, in the past couple decades, all the failed Ohio State quarterbacks. This is a stigma. The way Alabama, there's a stigma about Alabama quarterbacks. The jury's still out on Tua, by the way. The Dolphins might have something, and Hurts. But I think this is just a result of, think about all the quarterbacks that have come out of Ohio State the last couple of years. You know, Cardell Jones, he was lightning in a bottle in college, and then he didn't pan out in the NFL. He's now in the XFL. You had J.T. Barrett. J.T. Barrett became a wideout when he got to the NFL. I don't think
Terrell Pryor.
Not J.T. Barrett. I mean Braxton Miller. Braxton Miller got to the NFL and became a wideout.
Oh, we got to chronicle Braxton Miller's fall from grace. That was criminal.
J.T. Barrett was another one.
I don't think he ever made it. He never made it
to the NFL. You had the Terrell Pryor thing. I mean, the Terrell Pryor thing was probably the best athlete that school has ever recruited. You know, that dude was like a top 30 recruit in basketball too. Like, that dude was he was like Jalen Suggs before Jalen.
Did you know to this day the longest run for a quarterback in an NFL game belongs to Terrell Pryor. 93-yard touchdown for the Oakland Raiders.
Which is funny because he then converted to wideout later on.
Hey, and he had a 1,000-yard season with I believe it was the Washington football team. So
might have been. He bounced around.
Or the Browns, one of those two.
Who didn't he play for though? I mean, he played for like 7 teams.
Yeah.
So I think this thing with Fields is just a stigma. It's the Ohio State stigma. The same way Alabama's stigma is about quarterbacks. I think this is just the Ohio State stigma, that there's been so many, and a lot of them have been black quarterbacks. I don't want to bring race into this, but just because you've had so many, for some reason, all the Ohio State quarterbacks last 10, 15 years have all been black, but they've all got they've got to the NFL and didn't pan out, or you had the most recent one, Dewey Haskins, So I just think this is a stigma, which, by the way, Ryan Day did not want Dewey Haskins. Ryan Day did not want Dewey Haskins to leave early. Dewey Haskins chose to leave early. It was to his detriment. I wish him the best in Pittsburgh, but it was to his detriment, and we're going to see what ends up happening with that. I think Fields, don't forget, dude, Fields was not originally recruited by Fields. He left high school. He graduated high school early, went to Georgia, lost the job to Jake Fromm, Nobody knows how. Nobody. I think that was Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart was just, this dude got us to the national championship last year, so we're gonna ride with this dude. Even though Fields was clearly better, he said, "Screw this." Went to Ohio State, won the job, even though he really wasn't supposed to. He won the job, and basically 1 year he lost 2 games. He lost 2 games as a starter. He lost last year's semifinal to Clemson, and then he lost this year's national championship. He lost 2 games as a starter in college.
3. Didn't they lose 1 game the year before? I don't know. They might have lost 1 game. Okay, but still, he won a lot. No, you're right. Your point.
He won a lot.
Stands. Continue.
As a starter, he only lost 2 games. So I just think this is the stigma with Ohio State. I think Fields just what can Fields do? He's got the arm strength. He's physical. People wonder, can he take a hit? I don't know if any of you saw that hit he took in the semifinal where the dude basically lowered his helmet and fucking drilled him in the ribs, and he proceeded to throw for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns in that Clemson game. So clearly the dude can take a hit. He's a physical specimen, 6'4.5", and he ran a 4.4. He ran a 4.4. Outside of Lamar Jackson, who we didn't see run at the combine, but probably runs about a 4.2, 4.3. That's one of the fastest times recorded since Vic.
Yep.
From a quarterback. So what can't the dude do? He's got accuracy. He only threw I think he only threw like seven interceptions. 7 interceptions, and that was 2 years as a starter. He threw 3 last season, he threw 4 this year. 7 interceptions as a college starter in the 2 years that he played. So
I'm kind of glad you brought up the race thing for a second, because I think it's important when having an honest conversation about
I think it's why Lamar Jackson. I think it's why Lamar Jackson fell. I think it's why Mahomes. Fell as low as he did.
Deshaun Watson, you can say the same thing. Like I think if you go back to 2017, just because you mentioned it, right? It's weird, Andrew, because we don't even have to look back, right? I was on the phone with you when that draft was happening. I remember this. And I remember you and I talking about 2017, the fact that Mitch Trubisky, for no reason whatsoever, is going number 2 or number 3 to the Bears. It makes no sense. When you have Pat Mahomes there, when you have Deshaun Watson there, when you had all these other guys there, all these other players you could have gotten, and you chose the person who a lot like people like Mac Jones, a lot like people like Zach Wilson, their stock was inflated after the season ended. That's what happened with Trubisky, because there was very little to show you that Trubisky could be a consistent, game-changing, franchise-caliber starter in the NFL. And I think the same mistake is being made against Justin Fields in this. And by that I mean, I think Justin Fields is honestly a victim of not just, the other quarterbacks, getting more name recognition and having their things inflated, but also just the stigma that still exists about a black quarterback in football. Because for the longest time, it was through the 80s, the 70s, through all this longest time, the thing was, black quarterbacks, they're good in college, but they can't be NFL starters. So they switch them to wide receiver. And it happened for a long time because for a long time the stigma was they didn't think that black quarterbacks were smart enough. They didn't think black quarterbacks had the intelligence or had the ability to process all these information, when in reality they were doing the same thing in college. And
the only quarterback, the only Super Bowl we've ever been to, our quarterback was black. Steve McNair.
Yeah. So Steve McNair is an example of someone who bucked that trend, and one of the big names who bucked that trend. But same thing, like you said, happened to Lamar Jackson. People underestimated him. People came out and said he switched to wide receiver, which is just looking back, that is insane. Could you imagine if Lamar Jackson switched to being a wide receiver like back then?
Dude, he didn't run at the combine because he was scared he'd be too fast.
The waste of talent that would have been. And we're seeing a very similar thing happen here. Whichever team ends up with Justin Fields is going to be lucky, because I'm telling you, he should go number 2. He should go number 3. There's a conversation. If the Jaguars would have decided, hey, we want a more mobile quarterback, we want to run this system, and they picked him at number 1, I could buy that. I genuinely could buy that. That's how good Justin Fields is. The fact that he's not being considered to be top 3 over someone like Mac Jones, criminal. Absolutely criminal. And it's indicative of the fact that these scouts, they think they're smarter than they actually are, because every scout wants to be, the next, like, oh, I just found the next Pat Mahomes. I just found the next person. When in reality, if you watch the games, you know who's good, you know who's bad. Like, it's so simple. So freaking simple. But I'm telling you, whoever gets Justin Fields is going to be lucky, and their franchise is going to be better for it.
There's just certain things you can't teach, man. Like, and dude, one of the biggest knocks on Fields, it was wild too, was one of the biggest knocks on Fields was his accuracy.
Makes no sense,
if
dude.
If you go and Pro Football Focus went back, out of all the quarterbacks coming out, did you know Fields was the most accurate?
He completed 70% career, 70% passing completed completion percentage for his career. Yeah.
His touchdown to interception ratio was 7-1.
Yep.
Higher. The number 2 on that list was Sunshine's with 5-1. So that means he scored 2 more touchdowns per interception that he threw, more than the guy who's going to be the number 1 pick. I don't know what all the scrutiny is about Justin Fields. He's just a hell of a talent. I think he's just a result of a stigma, an old stigma that's been disproven over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And right, dude, whoever gets him, whether San Francisco comes to their senses, they take him at 3, whether he falls to 7, 8, whatever team gets him, they're getting a stud. This dude was the number 1 athlete coming out of high school for a reason. He was some sites had him number 2 behind Sunshine, some had him number 1 behind ahead of Sunshine. Regardless, he was there for a reason. He's a special talent.
Yep.
And whatever team realizes that, they're getting something.
All right. Yep. I agree with you 100%. I again hope he doesn't fall, but I think he's gonna fall, and we're gonna actually see how far I think he's gonna fall. So Andrew, here's how I think we're gonna do this. I think we're just gonna do our top 7 for now, and then we'll get into, and then we'll like kind of go from there. So I'm going to start off with my mock draft. So these are our mock drafts for the 2021 NFL Draft. This Sunday, we're going to be live right here on the YouTube channel starting at 7 p.m. React to everything that's going to happen, give you coverage of all the stuff that's happening, the trades, whatnot. We're going to be ready by then. We'll hope to see you there. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this video as well as to the channel. So let's get started, all right? So our mock draft. So my mock draft for the 2021 NFL Draft. For number 1, I have the Jaguars, of course, taking Trevor Lawrence. I also have at number 2, Zach Wilson. That seems to be where the Jets are headed, in that direction. Number 3, we found out today, reports showed that the 49ers are out on Justin Fields. They will not be picking him, and they'll make their decision between Mac Jones and Trey Lance in the coming days. I'll explain why I have Mac Jones there, because I don't believe he should be there. But number 4 is where I have the Falcons taking Jamar Chase. This was a close call for me. I thought Kyle Pitts could be in this spot, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to trade Julio Jones, so they're going to want to get another receiver there. I have Penei Sewell going to the Bengals. Joe Burrow, with that injury last year, it proved that they needed another tackle. They needed protection for him. And then I have a run of receivers right there with Waddle going to the Miami Dolphins, and then Devonta Smith going into the Detroit Lions. But, of course, that is not counting trades. I'm expecting someone to trade up within that sweet spot of 6 through 8 to potentially get someone there. But that's where I have these guys. Andrew, why don't you talk about your mock draft, your top 7?
So we pretty much agree on the first 2, with Sunshine going number 1 to Duval and Zach Wilson going number 2. Listen, I don't really agree with the Zach Wilson thing, but we spoke about that. But, the Jets seem to be so enamored with Zach Wilson that it's pretty inevitable at this point. At number 3, though, my thing is, despite what the reports say, I think a lot of it is smoke. And I think the smoke is meant to keep the Jets from coming to their senses and realizing that they're passing up on a potential generational talent in Justin Fields, and them taking Justin Fields to use him as leverage in a potential trade to acquire some more assets from San Francisco. That was with my number 3 pick. The 4 pick, I actually have Kyle Pitts going just because I think he's the best overall offensive player in the draft. I think Atlanta the stuff with Julio, he's not. I don't know if Julio's like on the move. They do owe him a lot of money. I don't necessarily know if Julio's going to be on the move, but that team. I think if they do decide to move off from Julio, he's just such a weapon. Like you could put him on the outside, you could put him on the line. Like he's big, physical, everything like that. You can put him on the line. You pull that up again. Then I have Penei Sewell just because they took I equate this a lot to like when the Indianapolis Colts a couple years ago just built the O-line. They need to protect the quarterback, dude. They have their quarterback in the future. They need to protect the quarterback. With the 6th, I have Rashawn Slater just because I think they need to. They already have a really good defense. At this point, it's just same deal. You got to protect Tua. And at 7, I actually had Jamar Chase going to Detroit just because they just made the trade at quarterback. They traded Stafford. They bought in who was it? They bought in Goff. They bought in Goff. They just lost Kenny Golladay, so they need to replace Kenny Golladay any way they can. And I think if they're going to replace Kenny Golladay, the best bet would be probably the best receiver, though we disagree on that. I think the best receiver in this draft is Jamar Chase, but
yeah, I think honestly, like, look, those guys are so good that it's comparing them. I think it's kind of just it's whatever it's honestly whatever you kind of desire, right? Because Jamar Chase is kind of like he's more of a speedster, I would say, than the other guys, like because he averaged so much per catch in college. I think Devontae Smith, especially if he bulks up, he'll be a beast in the NFL. Just take over games. Waddle also has like great ability. So I think those three, like we could spend time comparing those guys, but at the end of the day, they're just 3 amazing players. We're all in agreement on that. So let's talk about where you and I kind of diverge. So I have at number 3 the 49ers taking Mac Jones. Because of not just because of the reports, but because of other factors. And I know how Shanahan likes his quarterbacks, but you have them taking Justin Fields. A lot of people would say Justin Fields rightfully probably belongs in that spot, but everything coming out of the San Francisco 49ers, everything coming out of the reports that are coming out of there say that Fields is out. But you think it's a smokescreen. Why do you think that?
I just think it's a smokescreen because Justin Fields, like, the value is definitely there. And until the pick is made for Zach Wilson, we've heard all this stuff about Zach Wilson, but until the pick is actually made, he's not in a New York Jets uniform yet. And, I mean, just given everything that we just talked about when it comes to Fields, his ability, like, he could do everything. Yes, he does have flaws. Every quarterback has flaws and everything like that. Every player has flaws, but I just think that they don't want to, if the perceived value of Justin Fields is you can get him at 3, I think that they don't want the Jets to second guess themselves on the Zach Wilson pick and then hold them hostage by taking Fields as leverage in a potential trade to get some assets out of them. So that's why I think they're trying to downplay the actual value of Fields, and they're going to try to they're going to wait until the Jets actually take Zach Wilson, and then they're going to come out and they're going to be like, don't be surprised if you hear Goodell come out and say with the 3rd pick, the San Francisco 49ers select Justin Fields. We did mention, I don't know if I mentioned this, but in the 2 Super Bowls that Shanahan has been to, he's had an immobile quarterback who couldn't extend plays, who, outside of being a game manager, he really couldn't do that much. With Justin Fields, he might not be getting a game manager. He might be getting a guy that he might have to mold into a game manager. But what he is getting, he's getting an athletic freak. He's getting a guy who can run, who can extend plays, who's physical. I equated him to, he's like Cam Newton, though he's not as like big, tall wise, because Cam's like 6'6". He's about 6'3.5", 6'4". He's getting Cam Newton with maybe not a Mahomes arm, but with a very strong arm who's more accurate. I equate him to a more accurate Cam Newton. So if you can get that in an offense that's dynamic, like a Shanahan offense, there's a world of opportunity for San Francisco. That's why I think they're going to ultimately take Fields at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly compare Fields more to Watson, but again, it's just comparing to whatever you want to fit, right? But look, in a perfect world and in a sane world, Justin Fields would be taken at number 2 or number 3, and I agree with you on that. But the reality is, I think the 49ers, knowing how knowing how Kyle Shanahan rather is, he's very stubborn about his system. We know this. He's very stubborn about his system. He likes a particular type of quarterback, and it's not the type of quarterback that's going to run out of the pocket. That's going to be, mobile. That's going to be able to kind of elude those stuff. And here's the big thing. The reason why I think they're going to pick Mac Jones over Justin Fields has to do with the fact that that Kyle Shanahan does not want to mold his system around a young quarterback. I think he wants a young quarterback to come into this system and play the type of way he wants to play, because in the NFL, we know with these head coaches, especially with these offensive coordinators, Andrew, there's a lot of stubbornness and the lack of desire to change. We've seen that throughout the NFL. We've seen that with Kyle Shanahan. He doesn't adjust. That's why he's lost 2 Super Bowls now. That's why his offense in these big games tends to fall apart, because he's not good at making adjustments. Brilliant mind, but at some point you got to be able to adjust and bring your game into the new era of professional football. And in this new era of professional football, the mobile type of quarterbacks, they're going to be fine. They're good. They have their value. The non-mobile quarterbacks have their value, but you need a mobile quarterback to elevate your offense. And I think they're doing a big mistake. They're making a big mistake by passing on Justin Fields, but they're going to pick Mac Jones. Literally every source from the 49ers says Mac Jones is the guy. Mac Jones is the guy. Since they traded, the initial reports were even that they think Mac Jones is a plug-and-play guy in their offense, and I think that's fitting. That logic makes sense to me, because he's a lot like a Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo type of quarterback. I don't think his fundamentals are as good as either of those two, but I digress. I think it comes down to stubbornness. I think it comes down to the fact that the 49ers think he is better in that offense, and they're not willing to change their offense. That's why I have Mac Jones taken to number 3. Again, perfect world, dude, Justin Fields should at least be number 2, but this is the NFL we're living in. The scouts tend to get inflated egos too, and think they know better than the fundamentals of football, but that's just how it is, man. That's just how it is. But yeah, I think so. You have Kyle Pitts going to Atlanta. The reason I didn't have Kyle Pitts going to Atlanta was because of the fact that they traded a second-round pick to get Hayden Hurst from the Ravens. And I understand that Pitts might be one of the best, if not the best, all-around receiver in the draft. You can argue that. But I think with Julio's contract situation, with the fact that in June they have the ability to trade him and not have it affect their cap and move on from a 32-year-old Julio Jones with a big contract, I think and during a time where they're trying to rebuild, I think they might actually contemplate doing that. I think they might contemplate taking a wide receiver here. I think that's Chase in this scenario. I think Chase is, you can, again, say whoever you want to say is the best, but I think Chase, in my opinion, is the best overall wide receiver in the draft and who they would target at that point to replace Julio. So that's where I see them going. I see them going in that direction. Again, could Pitts go there? Yeah, I think he very well could. But if
the only reason why I want Will Pitts in that situation is because they just hired Arthur Smith. I obviously saw a lot of Arthur Smith this past season. Yeah. And one thing I know about Arthur Smith, he uses those tight ends. Think about Ferkser. Think about how Jonnu Smith. Arthur Smith got Jonnu Smith that big-ass contract with the Patriots. Yep. He likes to use his tight ends, and I just think, the more I think the more weapons that Arthur Smith has, the better. That's why I think he has a toy like that where he can put him in the slot. He could sometimes move him to the outside. He could put him in the box and everything like that. I think that's what Arthur Smith. That's where I think Arthur Smith's going to go. But I can't speak for Arthur Smith.
I get that. Here's my reasoning behind it, right? So my thing is, I chose that. I said that they're probably going to take wide receiver at 4. The Falcons are, and given who the people who are next, it kind of slated that way that I had Kyle Pitts going 8 to the Carolina. That's just kind of how the dominoes fall. This is how the draft works. Like there's one decision kind of affects the next 5 picks in the draft. It's like a domino effect. So you could have a player like Justin Fields, right? If he doesn't get to a top 3 position, and if he gets past the top 3 and no one trades for him, then there's potential that he could drop even into the teens. So I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to ask you about Atlanta real quick. Any chance we see Atlanta possibly picking a quarterback? Trey Lance, Justin Fields, one of those guys to move on or maybe sit in the wings behind Matt Ryan for a year?
I think if they do, it would be probably Trey Lance. A lot of it depends on where the 49ers go. If the 49ers do go with Mac Jones, I could see them either taking Trey Lance, just because Trey Lance, he's not the most mobile. He's not as mobile as Fields, but he's still pretty mobile. Kind of Tannehill-esque, even though he has a better arm than Tannehill. So I don't know. Arthur Smith is very good at adapting. No matter what you give him, I think he'll be able to adapt. But I don't necessarily see them going quarterback just because they do have a quarterback. And if they do go quarterback, it would be a quarterback that they can mold. So that's why I think if they do go quarterback, it would be a quarterback who's a project, who can sit behind Matt Ryan and learn. So that's where I think if they do go quarterback, it would be Trey Lance.
That makes a lot of sense. I think Trey Lance would be the only guy you would go there unless someone like potentially Mac Jones falls. Maybe they go there, but again, I don't like the pick there. This is also this 4 through 7, 4 through 8 is kind of where a lot of people have been talking about trades. There could be teams trading up to get a quarterback. I know the Ravens have been in the news. The Ravens kind of announced today that they were in the conversation to potentially trade up and pick a wide receiver. And reports came out that the Baltimore Ravens are going to be aggressive in trying to pursue a first-round wide receiver in this draft. They have 2 first-round picks. As a Tennessee, the Ravens, however, have 2 first-round picks. They have a lot of draft picks in this draft. They have the ability to move up. And let me just say this. I think that if you're the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm a Ravens fan, if you're the Ravens, you could wait it out, right, at around 26 or 25 or 27, wherever we're picking first, right? We could wait it out, and we might have someone like, Rashad Bateman or Terrence Marshall drop to us. We could get one of those receivers, but I don't think that's the type of game-changing receiver you would want. If you want the Ravens offense to genuinely be better, if you want the Ravens passing game to take that next level, don't just get Marquise Brown 2.0, because Marquise Brown is a good receiver, but if you want to elevate your game, you go get one of the top guys. And luckily for a lot of teams in this draft, there's 3 receivers who are almost consensusly, unanimously, all 3 amazing potential Pro Bowl receivers in Waddle, in Smith, and in Chase. And I think this 5 or this 6 through 8, 6 through 9 potentially spot is where you could see a team like the Ravens going up and getting a wide receiver. And for me, the guy you would want to get if you're the Baltimore Ravens is Devonta Smith. I think Smith has the highest potential of all of these receivers. I think he is a game-changing receiver, best hands in the draft. He has shown consistency throughout his career. Not just consistency, he's elevated his game every year in the last 3 years he played. So I think if the Ravens genuinely want to make that big splash, they have 2 first-round picks. They're smart about drafting in later rounds, so they could potentially get better value in the later rounds than they usually do in the first round. So go get the guy. Don't just settle for, a guy who is going to be very productive. And now look, this is nothing on Rashad Bateman or any of those guys. They're going to be good players, but they're not going to be as good as these 3. These 3, to me, are some of the best wide receivers we've ever seen come out in the draft. Like I said, the legacy of this draft might end up being how great these wide receivers are. So if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you really want to take that next level, you want Lamar Jackson to take another even bigger step forward in the passing game, you get him a prime time weapon. And in my opinion, I think Devonta Smith is that prime time weapon.
I agree with you. I do think he has the highest ceiling in terms of a wide receiver, just because the one of the biggest knocks on him has been that he's a $160 or he's skinny and all this stuff. Okay, you get him in the NFL weight room, he will bulk up real quick. To mention
he's already bulked up. He's at 175 now.
Not to mention if he was able to be as dominant as he was, imagine when he puts on an additional 15, 20,
Mm-hmm.
25 pounds of muscle. He's going to be that much more he already runs a 4.3. So, you don't expect that. I mean, you said best hands. He was dominant, dude. There was nobody. I'm surprised he didn't get the Calvin Johnson treatment where you were just doubling him at the line of scrimmage. You can't do that with Alabama though,
because he got Waddle. You can't do that.
You can't do that at Alabama. So it's just, I agree with you. I've heard Tennessee. Tennessee might be in the same situation where Tennessee, we don't know where Tennessee is going to go. I'll get into that later, but we don't know where Tennessee is going to go because obviously the defensive line has to be addressed. We don't have a pass rush, but I have heard that Tennessee could potentially be in the running for trading up to get one of those 3 wide receivers to replace Corey Davis. We had such a dynamic. We had probably the second or third worst defense last year, but it makes up for it when you have a top 5 offense. So replacing Corey Davis, I mean, a guy like Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, or Waddle would make it easier. And the thing with that is, you brought up how they would, if they go to the Ravens and everything like that, when you go, like, if one of these guys were to go to Tennessee, they wouldn't necessarily have to be wide receiver X. We already have A.J. Brown. So they wouldn't need the added pressure. You could let them progress. The talent's there. You could let them progress at their own rate and still be effective. So I heard Tennessee could be in the same thing.
Yeah,
we don't
especially
know
after losing Corey Davis. Especially after losing Corey Davis.
Those 3 are studs. So we're going to see those are potential trades. My mock obviously did not have trades because I don't know what trades could potentially be made.
Yeah, the trades are kind of the wild card. Look, I also think there's going to be a lot of trades on draft night. Like, the draft board that we've laid out in this mock draft is not going to be what you see on draft night. This is honestly one of the more volatile drafts I've ever seen, like in the NFL. This is, and I'm excited about it. There's so many great players. Like, this is the first time in a long time that I've looked at a draft and I've just been like, wow. There's not a lot of players on this board who are like going to be or could be busts. All of these guys are all very pro ready for the most part. If you take some of the quarterbacks aside, right? But we'll see. We'll get into that. Andrew, let's read out our 8 through 16. Why don't you start with your 8 through 16? Kind of explain briefly a little bit, just going through each one, and then we'll kind of talk about it after that. So go ahead.
So at my 8, I had Jalen Waddle. Obviously, Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase, those 2 could be interchangeable. When I went with the Trey Lance, that's just because I don't know if John Elway is necessarily sold on Drew Lock, and if Trey Lance is there at 9, I think just given his ability and given his potential, that would be a good pick. Dallas at 10, nobody knows how Jerry Jones thinks. I do think that a cornerback, they definitely are in the market for a cornerback. Patrick Surtain is the best corner on the board. That's why I think they would go with Patrick Surtain at 10. The Giants at 11, Micah Parsons. You know what? I was conflicted with this because I do think either him or Christian Darrisaw could have went there because the Giants obviously do need to bolster up that O-line, but you had a linebacker like Micah Parsons with the moves that they made this summer, this offseason to bring in guys like Adoree Jackson. They made the moves last offseason. They did make the trade for Leonard Williams, so they could really build something. All those Giants teams that won the Super Bowls have won on the backs of their defense. And Micah Parsons is probably the best defensive player in this draft. So that's why I think if he's there, you take him. And then I have Devontae Smith falling to the Eagles at 12 just because I do think that those concerns with a lot of these teams, the concerns with him being 160 pounds, even though he might be up to 170 now, I do think that those will concern certain guys. And the Eagles, they took that kid last year out of TCU. That didn't pan out. They need a game changer, a playmaker. Devontae Smith is that guy. So, did you want me to go to 14? Yeah, 14. Then I went Christian Darrisaw just because what they have out there in LA, not San Diego, LA. You have Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's the quarterback of your future. Now you got to protect him. You can bring on weapons gradually. You got to protect him. Minnesota taking the safety, Travion. I think it's Morig, whatever his name is. That was just based off of need. I think they need a safety. Minnesota obviously has a lot of questions they have to answer. They need a safety, and that's why I think he would be he's there at that pick. Did you want me to go to 16 or?
Yeah, just finish it out.
All right. 15, I went with Mac Jones, even though a lot of people have Mac Jones going to 3. I think Mac Jones is going to fall to 15 just because a lot of these other teams are not really in the market for a quarterback outside of maybe Denver, but I don't think Denver goes. I think Denver goes more in the direction of Trey Lance.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones, a lot of people talk about what's the one thing people have always talked about when it comes to Mac Jones is there's not that many mobile quarterbacks left, but there's not that many non-mobile quarterbacks, but the one that's not mobile just won a 7 Super Bowl, even though he's not Tom Brady. He does kind of fit what the Patriots do, and that's why I think the Patriots, even though the Patriots don't really draft quarterbacks, this is the kind of guy they could bring in. He could sit behind Cam. And midway through the year, depending on how the season's going, if they're not in playoff contention, they can just give him some burn, see how he does. And then that last pick, I think I had Christian Barmore. Christian Barmore is a wild card just because I think Christian Barmore, he's a very talented defensive lineman. Personally, I want him to fall to Tennessee if Tennessee doesn't trade up. And if we keep that 22nd pick, I want him to fall to Tennessee so we could bolster our defensive line because I think he would be great, best available. But they need to just bolster that defense. They just brought in Watt. They drafted Isaiah Simmons last year. So they already have the offense with Kyler Murray. They have that dude with dreads. I know his name. I just don't say it.
I know.
They have that dude, and they just, defense. If they're going to make any type of run at the Super Bowl this year, Watt didn't go there for a rebuild. They need to be in contention.
They're going to win. They're trying to win.
They're trying to win now. If you're trying to win now, we just saw what was the recipe for stopping the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The recipe for stopping the Chiefs was in the trenches at the line of scrimmage. You bring in a guy like Christian Barmore, he does have very high potential. He also has big bust potential. So we'll see, but I think he'd be great at that position. Big, physical, athletic, moves his feet really well, and I think he'd be perfect just next to Watt, next to what they're building over there.
We got some similarities in there, but we also have some differences. Let me go through mine real quick. So at 8, I have by default he kind of fell there because of some dominoes that fell. Kyle Pitts, I think he's worth much higher than this. Might see someone trade up to get him, but Kyle Pitts at 8 with the Panthers. Number 9, I have Trey Lance going to the Denver Broncos. He fits the mold. Bigger quarterback. The only difference between him and quarterbacks that have been picked by John Elway in the past, he's way more mobile and he's way more agile with his feet. I think Trey Lance could kind of buck that trend of bigger quarterbacks that drafted by John Elway that have not turned out well. Number 10, I think Patrick Surtain is going to be a star in the NFL, and the Cowboys need help in their secondary. He's the best cornerback available, best defensive back available at this point. They go there. Then I have the New York Giants picking Rashawn Slater. Daniel Jones has been one of the more sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. I think Rashawn Slater is going to come in and help them out and help bolster up that offensive line that really needs help. I know Johnny agrees with that. Number 12, this is where it got interesting. I had Justin Fields falling down to the Eagles, and this comes down to, I will explain more about this specific pick, but this honestly comes down to the fact that if he's there, I don't think the Eagles are going to ignore him being there. Number 13, the best linebacker in this draft, in my opinion, is Micah Parsons. I think, like you said, they could go offensive line here, but I do think they want to help bolster that defense. That defense was really bad in LA last year. They were not able to give Justin Herbert the help that he needed. In a lot of games when they were up, that defense folded. I think Micah Parsons helps out with that. Christian Danishaw, offensive tackle, going to the Minnesota Vikings, help bolster up that line, help defend Kirk Cousins, who's going to need it after he just signed another goddamn guaranteed contract. Christian Barmore, I have going to the New England Patriots, and that is because of the rebuilding of the New England Patriots team, the rebuilding of that defensive line. I think that's the perfect spot for him as well, going there and kind of being a guy who can work within that Belichick system, who can work and probably grow in that Belichick system. And finally, Greg Newsome, cornerback, is the second-rated cornerback in this draft. I think that after losing out on Patrick Peterson last year, the Arizona Cardinals want to help bolster up that spot as well, get another cornerstone, another shutdown type of corner in that spot. So I have them taking Newsome there. I think that's going to help out their defense a lot because we saw last year that defense had problems covering when they went up against really good quarterbacks. Josh Allen was one. We all remember that game for another reason, but we also forget about the fact that Josh Allen led his team to a comeback right before that Hail Mary. So there's a lot to think about here if you are the Arizona Cardinals in that position. But we have a lot of agreement here, some disagreement. Let's start off with just, I think, the biggest consensus that you and I came to in our mocks, and that is Trey Lance at number 9. You explained it in a very similar fashion, I think, that I did, which was John Elway likes those big quarterbacks. We've seen Paxton Lynch, didn't work out. We saw Joe Flacco, really didn't work out. We saw, Drew Lock, again, up in the air, showed a lot of brilliance. Is it rookie year, but last year was not great. And this is a team that has weapons, Andrew. The Broncos have weapons. They have Noah Fant. They have Cortland Sutton. They have Jerry Jeudy, who a lot of people think is going to be really good one day, myself included. So they have the weapons. They have Melvin Gordon, who is complaining about being the best running back in the draft or in the NFL. So he's, I guess, going to go out there and hopefully prove that. So they have all this stuff. They have all this potential. They're missing the most important piece, and they have been for a long time, ever since Peyton Manning retired. If they get Trey Lance here, I do think that's going to solve a lot of their problems, and it's going to be good for Trey Lance as well, because that means Lance is going to go into a situation where a lot of the structure is already there. A lot of the pieces that he probably needs around him to be successful early are already there. So, it's not going to be a thing where he has to go in there immediately and, be the game-changing franchise guy. So I think that's going to work out for them. So the Broncos taking Trey Lance. Why do you have that?
Just because they clearly, obviously Drew Lock is not the guy. Everything you mentioned before, they do have the pieces around him to definitely give him. He's got dudes. He's got dudes around him. And I think that because a lot of those dudes you mentioned are young guys, Noah Fant's a young guy, Jerry Jeudy really has legitimate potential. Whatever they can get left out of Gordon, I think he could grow. He could grow with those guys, and he could develop the chemistry. They're obviously not going to win anytime soon, but he has an opportunity to grow with those guys, develop that chemistry, and just keep building with them for the future. And that's what I think. I think that could. I really think he could be a cornerstone piece for them if he's there, if they draft him, because we don't know. He could go as high as 3 based on what sources have said. So.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I think that's true. I think that, and again, if he's there, I think he's going to be a good get for them. Let's talk about this, Andrew. So this is, again, one of those things where the dominoes just happen to fall this way. This happens with mock drafts. There's going to be some trades. We know there's always trades in the NFL. But the dominoes for me in my mock draft kind of fell into Justin Fields going number 13 to Philadelphia. And I just want to explain my pick. So my reasoning is, I can't account for trades in a mock draft. So let's assume there's no trades. If there's no trades and he's there at 13, I don't think there's any chance that the Philadelphia Eagles would pass up on getting him, because their quarterback situation, they're not devoted to Joe Flacco, who they just signed, obviously. They're not completely sold either on Jalen Hurts, who has great potential. But when you have a quarterback like Justin Fields right there within your grasp, who I think is going to be a better version of Jalen Hurts in his rookie year, I don't think you can pass that up. And I've said this before. Justin Fields is someone who can come in. He can, kind of traverse around a bad offensive line. I think he'll come in and elevate that Philadelphia Eagles offense to a better position, which is something that the other quarterbacks just don't do, that they have on their roster currently. So if he falls that low, and this would be a massive drop, but you know what, Andrew? You and I both know that while it's absurd that he could drop this far, it's not out of the realm of possibility, considering how underlooked he is. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And look, there's also a chance he could go number 12 to New York, because you could say the same thing about New York, saying that, wow, Justin Fields is right there. How much are we committed to Danny Dimes at that point? How much are you committed to that? How much are you committed to having, a guy who a lot of people say, he showed good signs, but he kind of digressed last year. So that's the thing about Justin Fields. And I think if he goes to Philly, it's going to be an interesting scenario because I think it's either going to go very well for him or very badly for him. Because either he's going to get thrown to the wolves immediately or he's going to wait around and, maybe he gets lost in the shuffle. We know, dude, the spotlight when you're a rookie quarterback, when you're early on in your career, it's only on you for so long before someone else comes around and takes it away. And that's a little bit about what happened to Justin Fields. I don't want to, just make this the Justin Fields show, but it's kind of turning into that. But yeah, there's that. Again, I mentioned that the Chargers are going to be taking Micah Parsons. I think that he would really help out, stabilize that defense because Justin Herbert he did everything he could. Like he can't help the defense stop the other offense. He scored. He more touchdowns than any rookie quarterback in NFL history. The dude, honestly, if his team had won, he would have been in conversation for MVP. Like he balled out. So that's going to be a thing. And the Patriots, I don't have them taking a quarterback. They might trade up for one. If they don't trade up for one, I think they're going interior defensive line with Barrymore. I think it just fits what they would do. That's a very Patriots-type pick. That's also, a pick that I think would really help them stabilize that defense after what they lost just last year. But yeah, I think we pretty much explained that. Let's go through the rest of our first round. Let me start with mine. So at 17, you have him going to the Vikings. I have him going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Trevon Moehrig is going to be going to the Raiders, help bolster that defensive back position for the Las Vegas Raiders. So many names, I can't keep track of them. Then I have Alijah Vera-Tucker, offensive tackle, going to Miami. I think this is a good value pick for them. There's also a lot of offensive tackle talent in this draft, guys. So I think Vera-Tucker can come in, kind of take over that Laramie Tunsil spot, be a similar type of player, and really help them out as well. The Washington football team, they have had a lot of good defensive They've had a lot of good defensive players in their history. They're going to add another one here. I have them taking Jeremiah Asuwu Cormarado. That guy. I'm sorry, I butchered your name, but you were really, really good. At number 20, I have the Bears bolstering their wide receiving core, taking Rashad Bateman, adding him to an already decent core, helping out Andy Dalton or potentially Gardner Minshew. We'll talk about him in just a minute. There was a report about him. Kwity Paye going to the Indianapolis Colts. I have him going there. We'll talk about that. And then your Tennessee Titans, Andrew, I have them getting J.C. Horn. They got rid of their cornerbacks. They missed out 2 years ago on the Jalen Ramsey sweepstakes. I think this is a good pick for them to get at this position. And we'll have to see how it plays out. Walker Little, I have going to the Jets. You can't have a quarterback without a good offensive tackle. Might as well pick one to help him out there. Interesting right here. 24, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Najee Harris. Things didn't work out with James Conner last year. He's been decent, but they've been missing the ability to run the ball. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're in the AFC North, the one thing that you and I both know, Andrew, you have to be able to play defense. You have to be able to run the ball. The Steelers have not shown that they could do, honestly, either. But this pick would go a long way in picking Najee Harris, who I think is the best running back in the draft. This will go a long way in their rebuilding that offense. Next, 25, I kind of changed it up here. I thought this would be interesting. I have Travis Etienne going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You picked the quarterback from Clemson. You might as well pick the running back who he's familiar with. You might as well pick the running back who he has chemistry with. You might as well pick the running back who I think could be a very good running back in the NFL and a game-changing back. I have Travis Etienne going in to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That offense is going to be ready to go week one. Jalen Phillips going to the Cleveland Browns, bolster that defensive line. I have Jason Owe going to the Baltimore Ravens, to my Baltimore Ravens. We lost Matthew Judon. We need help on that edge rush on the defensive line for years to come. I think he could be a game changer there. Elijah Moore adding wide receiving depth to the New Orleans Saints. Terrence Marshall, we talked a lot about last year about how they didn't help. The Packers didn't help Aaron Rodgers with their first-round pick. I think this is the year they finally do it. They're like, hey, we don't know how much longer Aaron Rodgers is going to be here. We might as well help him out and get him some help in the offense. Finishing up here, Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, going to play along with White on that defensive back for the Bills. Dylan Radins, who I think is a very, very interesting player to watch. He was the offensive tackle at North Dakota State. He ran in a very similar offense that the Baltimore Ravens had, kind of like a play-action college type offense, and he blocked. He did a lot of run blocking at North Dakota State for Trey Lance, who did a lot of similar things to what Lamar Jackson does. I think at 31, if he's there, the Ravens take him because he's shown that he can be run blocking. We obviously need a right tackle. I think Dylan Radins can do that. And finally, Caleb Farley, cornerback, bolstering that Bucs defense that is trying to repeat to win the Super Bowl. Woo, that was a lot. But I know you have a lot of stuff too, so why don't you go into your mock draft, and we'll kind of see where we differ and kind of debate that.
So at 17, I have J.C. Horn. I don't think J.C. Horn. First off, J.C. Horn is the second best corner on this draft. I don't think J.C. Horn gets out of the top 20. That's why I have J.C. Horn going to the Las Vegas. I was about to call them Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders. That Raiders defense was atrocious, and especially in the AFC West, you got the Chiefs, and if you don't have the pass rushers, at least have the corners to be able to keep up with that team in Kansas City. So, J.C. Horn. At 18, I have Elijah Vera Tucker, just because I think they need to protect Tua. If he is their quarterback of the future, got to protect him. I have Washington going with Rashad Bateman, just because I think they need offense now. That defense is great. They have the D-line. That D-line is one of the best. It's one of the best in the entire NFL. But you need weapons, man. Like, I think part of the reason why they couldn't get anything going against the Tampa Bay was just because they really didn't have offense like that. So add a guy like Rashad Bateman, give whoever the quarterback over there is, because we still don't know, a weapon. Then at 20, I actually had Caleb Farley. The quarterback situation has to get figured out. Unless Chicago moves up, I think Chicago should just continue to draft a defensive player. Draft a defensive player, just having another elite defense, and give whoever you decide on your quarterback, give him an elite defense. Then I have Kwity Paye going at 21. This is, I think Indy is win now, and Kwity Paye is the second best defensive end on the board. I'd go with Kwity Paye for Indy. I have Jason Owe actually going to 22 to Tennessee, my Tennessee Titans. If Barmore is on the board, obviously I would love for Barmore if we don't trade up to try to get a wideout. But Jason Owe, I think Jason Owe, he has a very high ceiling. He's very raw, and he's not one of those guys that can step in and help now, but he's a very talented player out of Penn State, and I think Jason Owe is going to have a very successful career. Then I have Elijah Moore to the Jets, just because, they added Corey Davis. They're going to draft the quarterback, and unless they trade out of this pick to get some more, maybe get some second rounders, I think the Jets, you have one weapon in Corey Davis. Go get whoever your quarterback of the future is, get him another one. Elijah Moore. That's simple. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh's they do need a run game, but I think they could get their running back in the second round, believe it or not. I think they can get their running back in the second round. Remember, a lot of their running backs were not first rounders. Le'Veon, James Conner, they were not first round picks. They don't like drafting running backs in the first round. So build up an O-line, protect whatever you can get out of Big Ben, whatever's left of Big Ben, protect him, and draft a running back in the second round. I then have Tevin Jackson. If they're going to draft Sunshine, they need a guy who can protect Sunshine. So draft an O-line, draft an offensive tackle, Tevin Jackson. And then this one was weird. Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa.
Yeah, there you got it.
Out of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, they called him like a Swiss Army knife, because apparently there's people that said he could play. He could go from defensive end to linebacker to safety. I mean, they said this dude he could play everywhere on the defensive side of the ball. So
maybe he can.
That's huge. They did just add Clowney. I think this is just another piece because clearly Clowney, with Clowney's injury history, Cleveland, bolster that defense even more. You got Myles Garrett on one side, just bring in the Swiss Army knife. We don't know if Clowney's going to be able to make it the full season. We thought he would last year. We saw how that turned out. So bring in a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame. He's kind of from the area. They're in Cleveland. He's from Notre Dame. So bring that guy in. I then have the Ravens. You guys, as you mentioned, you guys lost Matthew Judon. So I have you guys actually taking Jalen Phillips. Just, you need another, keep that defense. The Ravens love defense, and this is the kind of guy that I think the Ravens can plug in. They can develop him, and he's going to get better and better because all the defensive players they draft seem to get better and better.
Yep.
I have Terrence Marshall just because Terrence Marshall, I think, could potentially be a wide receiver one. The future, you also have to get their quarterback weapons, whether it's Taysom Hill, whether it's Jameis, you got to get their quarterback some weapons, and we don't know what the future entails for, who is it? Michael Thomas. So, plus, he played his college ball in the Bayou down at LSU. It makes sense for him to be a New Orleans Saint.
Yeah.
The Packers need a corner, even though they didn't really have that many weapons on offense. The Packers, I think one of their team needs is a corner. Greg Newsome will be there. They'll take him. That's plain and simple. 30, I have Azeez Ojulari. He is a project, and they do have a very good defensive line there in Buffalo. This kid's, I think he's a project. He's not necessarily going to step in and be a stud right away. Coming out of Georgia, I do think they could develop him. You put him next to a guy like Ed Oliver, and I think he's just going to be a piece. Like, he's just going to be a piece to something bigger that they're going to build in that defense, right? 2 more. The Ravens are there at 31. Rondale Moore, I mean, unless they trade up with that other pick, I think they're going to take Rondale Moore. They need another wideout. Hollywood Brown is clearly not their wide receiver one. I think Rondale Moore, he's a plug-in guy, gives them a weapon. And then at 32, if the Tampa Bay doesn't trade out of this pick, I think they take Zaven Collins just because he was the national defensive player of the year in college. So that defense was elite. Obviously, you bring in a guy like this, he's young, he's ready to play right away, but he's clearly not a finished product. You can develop him so that when it comes time, because some of those defensive players are a little bit older, and you could bring in a guy like that. So when you lose like the Ndamukong Suhs of the world, when you lose the Jason Pierre-P's of the world, plug him right in, and they can just keep it going.
Yep. But I just want to get to some chat questions real quick. Ryan Woodbridge, he asked, will the Packers trade Jordan Love for draft picks? And will they move up to get a QB if they get rid of Love? So let's just address that first point, I guess. Will the Packers trade Jordan Love for draft picks? I don't know what draft picks you're going to get in return for Jordan Love. Because
he hasn't. We don't know what his draft value is.
Literally has not taken even a preseason snap. So look, I don't know what teams are going to be enticed to even want to trade for Jordan Love, because the Packers last year seemed to be the only team that was willing to trade up to get him. So, and again, it's just the unknown. People, if you're going to go with the unknown, I think you go with the risk that you can take in this draft, like the people who are already there. You don't go with the risk of someone who's already been taken with an organization. So I don't know how viable that is. I think Jordan Love is the future for the Packers. They made their bed with him last year. And for that reason, I've said it, I've been on record, I think Aaron Rodgers might be his last season as a Green Bay Packer. I don't think you draft a guy like Jordan Love that you're in love with, pardon the pun, that much, and trade up for him if he's not the guy 2-3 years down the road from when you drafted him. So I think, they've made their bed with Jordan Love and they're going to sleep in it. Now, will they move up to get another quarterback to get rid of Love? Again, I don't think so. I think they're committed. They're committed to this situation with Rodgers and Love. And my thing is, at this point, you might as well get a weapon for Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love for the foreseeable future, and so they can be successful. And for me, I think Terrence Marshall is going to be a good fit. Aaron Rodgers, I also think, is going to be able to elevate him and add to all the weapons that the Packers do have. So that's what I think. I also don't think there's a market out there for Jordan Love. If we're being honest, I don't think that exists outside of Green Bay.
I agree. We don't really know what his value is just because he hasn't taken a snap yet. I don't know what team's going to be willing on taking a chance. If they do get any picks, they'll be later round picks. So I don't necessarily see Green Bay. Obviously, we've spoken how GMs have an ego. They want to justify their picks, and they traded up for that pick. I don't see Green Bay making a trade just because they don't know what they have yet in Jordan Love. So I don't think that GM makes that trade. I think they just ride it out with Jordan Love and see what happens.
Yeah, Jordan Love, I don't think he's like, this is like, there's more of a chance that the Jets pick Justin Fields at number 2 than there is of Jordan Love getting traded for picks before draft night. Yes, another question. What team will Zach Wilson go to? Well, we already kind of talked about that. Short answer is he's going to the Jets. That's the quarterback that they're in love with. That's the quarterback that they've scouted the most. That's the quarterback that a lot of insiders have said that he's going to. It's the and that's a Jets type pick, honestly. For being real, that's where Zach Wilson's going to go. We kind of already chronicled this in the beginning, so you can go back towards the beginning of the stream before we did our mocks. We talked about each quarterback in this draft. So you go back to that part or wait till the clips come out tomorrow. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already, though. Hit that like button, help out the algorithm and all that. But Zach Wilson, yeah, we've already kind of treaded that. He's probably going to the Jets. Andrew, there was a report that came out this week that Gardner Minshew might have caught the eye of Chicago Bears management. So apparently the Bears have a tentative plan right now, as reported by, I believe, someone at Bleacher Report. I forgot her name. But the plan is to, take the best player available at the time and then not trade up to get a quarterback, but instead maybe look for another potential option outside of Andy Dalton. They already signed Andy Dalton. The name that was thrown around was Gardner Flint Minshew II. So this is like the first big report that we've heard that, Minshew could potentially have a landing spot. And we've been saying for weeks that if you are the Bears, this is the guy you go get. And if there's a perfect position for him to go to and start maybe day one, it's the Chicago Bears. So what do you make of this new report that says, the Bears are interested in Minshew and we could see that trade being made right around draft time?
Dude, it's a low-risk, high-reward move they could make.
Yep.
I mean, we spoke about this, last week before that.
Every week.
The quarterback situation, we don't know. We don't know what that situation is like in Chicago. They don't know what it's going to be in Chicago. So, might as well. They might as well. He's already played multiple years in the NFL. He's a low-risk, high-reward type player. You don't really – he's his player-friendly contract or team-friendly contract where you don't pay him that much. And, frankly, if he succeeds, great. If he doesn't, you don't really have to give up that much to get him because he really wasn't – he wasn't that highly touted to begin with. So I think it's a low-risk, high-reward type thing Chicago definitely should pursue.
Yeah. And especially, why would you trade up for one of these guys? Unless Justin Fields – drops, even more so than I'm saying. If Justin Fields drops to the late teens, that's when I think Chicago, you aggressively, or if you're any team, you aggressively pursue Justin Fields. But if you don't want to go out down that route, if you want that cheaper option and you want to build a team around somebody, go get Minshew. Doesn't turn the ball over, has good chemistry with every receiver he's ever had, is a leader. And on top of all of that, he's going to sell a hell of a lot of merchandise. So, Chicago does great business if they take a chance on Minshew. Very low risk kind of thing. Let's see here. What else did we disagree on? Not that much really. I think we basically agree on a lot of the basics of this. What do you think about the Titans, though? I think I have them taking J.C. Horn. They need help at that cornerback position. They lost your boy last year in free agency. I think they if there's anyone out there that needs help in the secondary, especially if you want to compete with the explosive offenses that are in the NFL, if you want to compete for a title, you have to get good secondary help, and the Titans are in need of it. I think J.C. Horn does fall to them kind of there. And if he's there, no brainer, you take J.C. Horn.
If he's there, I don't think he's going to be there, though. I would love for him to be there, though, by the way, dude. If you've seen, dude, his ceiling is like Jalen Ramsey. Like, that's the kind of player that he is, dude. So we'll see. I hope he's there, but for Tennessee's sake, I hope he's there, dude, because we're not moving up for him. If we move up, we're moving up for a wideout, and we'll see. We'll see on draft night.
We'll see what happens. I know you'll be watching the. If you want to see Andrew's reaction when the Tennessee Titans pick Kyle Trask at number 22, definitely tune in to our live draft special this Thursday night, 7 p.m. We're going to be doing the draft from start to finish. Draft starts at 8, but check us out. We're going to be pre-gaming the draft, talking about everything, all the news, everything that's going to be happening that night, then live watching the draft right here on the YouTube channel. You're going to get our reactions, our coverage, our analysis, everything. We'll be bringing you up to speed on trades. So if you can't find the draft on your own stream, we got you covered from coast to coast. Anyway, so let's, I guess, put a wrap on this episode with some final questions. So, it's going to be Ryan Woodbridge's birthday on Thursday. Happy early birthday. Be sure to check us out. We'll give you a birthday. Be sure to check out the thing. We'll have a little birthday shout out for you, my guy. But yeah, so let's finish up and kind of talk about some one superlative. Oh, actually, we have a few things to talk about here. This is interesting. So there's a scenario, Andrew, here that was thrown around by Bucky Brooks and by a few people actually online and few analysts that Justin Fields might be a target of the Baltimore Ravens. I don't agree with this. It's not me saying this. This is analysts, experts saying that the Baltimore Ravens have an offense where you need a quarterback who can throw the ball, but who's fast and can run a read option offense. And the theory is that Lamar Jackson has hit his ceiling, the proverbial ceiling, and that, do you really want to commit to him long term, or do you want to just get a cheaper option in Justin Fields and have him play that position? Now, as a Ravens fan, I think that's absolutely preposterous, considering Lamar Jackson in only his second year in the league led the NFL in touchdowns, was only the second ever unanimous MVP, and on top of that is going to be, when all things are said and done, the greatest running quarterback in NFL history, possibly has the chance to be one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen in NFL history with all-around skill. I don't understand why the contract talk is even like a thing. Lamar Jackson is going to get paid by the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is going to get a long-term extension by the Baltimore Ravens. Boom, non-factor. Justin Fields is not coming in. That's not happening. It's not even a move that the Ravens would make, because anyone who's ever followed the Baltimore Ravens knows that the Baltimore Ravens, they are not in the business of messing up something that already works. If it already works and they have the ability to extend it, and especially quarterback, this is a team that stuck with Joe Flacco. We stuck with Joe Flacco after we won the Super Bowl. We're not trading. We're not getting rid of Lamar Jackson and replacing him with Justin Fields. All respect to Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson is better. That's and that is not an insult by any means at all. Like, will Justin Fields in his rookie year be better than Lamar Jackson was in his rookie year? Probably. Will Justin Fields in the second year be better than Lamar Jackson was in the second year? Absolutely not. And again, could Justin Fields be great? Fuck yes. But we know Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. We know Lamar Jackson is one of the best passers in the NFL. He's one of the highest efficient passers in the NFL. So this talk about, are they committed to him? He's up and down. The dude wins. He's like Lamar Jackson. I think he's only lost, I believe, 9 games in his NFL career. Maybe don't get me wrong about that. In 9 games in his NFL career, And we're talking about, they might be ready to move on from Lamar, and Lamar can't get it done. It's bullshit. It's this same stigma that we talked about in the beginning of the episode. This stigma that this quarterback, he's doing it by running. He has the ability to run, and man, the NFL shouldn't work that way. Guess what? It's 2021. The NFL does work that way. Look at some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL today. Lamar Jackson has the ability to run. Patrick Mahomes runs a lot more than people give him credit for and has the ability to run a lot. Kyler Murray does the same thing. Jalen Hurts, we can go up to Philly, go up to Jalen Hurts. That's a very similar thing. Russell Wilson's always had the ability to run. Quarterbacks run. They're mobile quarterbacks. Mobile quarterbacks are the prototypical NFL quarterbacks now. So we need to get this idea out. Justin Fields is going to do great wherever he goes. It's not going to be in Baltimore, though. I guarantee you. If Baltimore trades up for Justin Fields, I will shave my head live on draft night. That is how confident I will shave all of this off live on draft night. That is how confident I am that Justin Fields will not be picked by the Baltimore Ravens in the first round on Thursday night. And if he is, tune in on Thursday because you're going to see me shave my head. That's how much disbelief I'm going to be in. It's not happening, though. Jesus. These types of reports, it's people who want to just make these sensational headlines to kind of Bucky Brooks. Who cares about Bucky Brooks? Who the hell is Bucky Brooks? It's like that NFL drafting. Who the hell is Mel Kiper? It's like my neighbor has more credentials than Bucky Brooks. And my neighbor's a garbage man. Like, come on. I'm sorry. I went off there. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But damn, wouldn't that make you mad though? Imagine if they were like, yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
Imagine, I know.
Like Derrick Henry,
I know.
oh yeah. So they're gonna pick Travis Etienne. Are they gonna trade up for Travis Etienne? Fuck no, they have Derrick Henry. Like, come on.
Or, right. I know.
It's dumb, man. It's dumb. Like these guys, they just wanna hear themselves talk. I think
pretty much, yeah. Just it's a talking point. That's all it is.
Andrew, question here: which one of these players is most likely to become a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done? I like that question. What do you think? Who's got the biggest potential to be a Hall of Famer in this draft?
Kyle Pitts.
Really? That's an interesting pick.
I know a lot of people in the national media have said this, but I just think he's just so versatile. Like, he's the kind of guy. I think you're going to see multiple 1,000-yard, barring he stays healthy. Yeah. You're going to see multiple 1,000-yard seasons out of him, and he's big, he's physical, fast, everything like that. And much like they said of Chase Young, the biggest thing with Chase Young when Chase Young was coming out last year was it's not the physical tools and it's not the actual dominance and it's not that he is a game changer, but it's you can just see 12, 13, 14, 15 years from now, you could just picture him putting the gold jacket on at the Hall of Fame. It's the same thing with Kyle Pitts. I besides all that physical stuff, barring he stays healthy, I could just see him 15 years from now putting a Hall of Fame, putting that gold jacket on and being inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think that's viable. I think Kyle Pitts, he's not my first choice, I guess. But I would say for me, it's Devonta Smith. I can't even it's the same reasons I said why he's like the best wide receiver in my opinion in this draft. The dude is just so good. So he has the raw talent and he's shown that he just gets better over time. And that's what you need to be successful long-term in the NFL, consistency over time. I think it's Devonta Smith. I believe that he has the mentality. And again, he needs to bulk up a little more. He'll do it. If that's what he needs to do, he will do it.
Get that kid eating some bread. Just get that kid eating some bread. He will put on that weight like that.
Some bread, potatoes, get him eating that carbs. Those carbs, he'll be fine. So I think he's going to be he has, for me, has the highest chance to be a Hall of Famer. We'll see what happens when it's all said and done. Hopefully we'll still be doing the show, and hopefully you'll still be subscribed. But if you haven't already, remember to do that. Subscribe for daily videos. Subscribe for our draft night special. Our draft spectacular is going to be Thursday night, starting at 7 p.m. until the end of the draft. We're going to be live right here reacting to everything, so don't miss out on that. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as always. Real Take Wrestle Talk, by the way, coming out tomorrow at 8:30. Me and Trevor are going to be talking about Kenny Omega becoming the first ever AEW Impact Champion. We're going to be talking about a lot of the other stuff in the NFL. I know Andrew's snickering, but Real Take Wrestle Talk is currently beating Real Take Sports Talk in the ratings. So, Andrew, we got to be better. But we'll see what happens with that. Remember to check that out if you're a fan of any sports. We usually got you covered here. NFL Draft, though, big special this week. Be sure to check it out. Andrew, any parting thoughts? Any final takes? What's on your mind? Let us know.
Well, the Knicks lost, so I'm a little down. I might have to shave this just because, this was the good luck, but it's not the good luck
Dude,
anymore.
do you know how toxic Knicks fans are? Knicks fans are so toxic that you remember we did a segment last week on the Knicks. So we did a segment on Zion potentially going to the Knicks, and then I kind of talked about how the Knicks have never been able to get like a primetime free agent. I split that up into 2 videos, right? Because it was one segment. I was like, okay, these are 2 different topics, kind of. Let me split that up. So the video about Zion potentially going to the Knicks was like 8 minutes long, and nobody watched that video. But then the 4-minute video about, the Knicks not being able to get a free agent and, of me outlining that, making that argument, got more views, got more hate, got more dislike. They were like, what is it about Knicks fans that attracts them to just being miserable?
We are a passionate fan base. You have to understand. The rest of the league, they're even Knicks fans, but there's a lot of them that love. There are Knicks fans that we love our team. We love the members of this team. You understand? There are dudes that, talk basketball that will give so much hate to Frank Ntilikina. And our fan base will go to war. We will go to hell and back for a guy who doesn't even see the floor. He literally sees the floor maybe 10 seconds a game. If we're winning and we need a defensive stop in the last play of the game, we put our best defender on the court for that one stop. That's Frank. We go to war. We go to hell and back for our players. So,
man, dude, it's just wild because we made a video praising the Knicks. Yeah, you mentioned their winning streak in that video too. We made a video praising the Knicks, and then they were just like, "We're not watching that video. We're gonna watch the video about negativity to make ourselves feel like shit." It's just that seemed like the most New York Knicks thing I've ever seen. Just like, no, I'm attracted to being miserable.
Because all we've done was heard people talk so much shit for so long that we're
dude.
Done
Okay, okay. Look. I get it. Your team is in like what 4th or 5th place right now. Like they're doing well. Okay, amazing. They're doing very well. Mazel tov to you, dude. They won 9 games in a row, and they acted like they won the NBA championship, like the Knicks fans. They act like they're like the best team in the NBA. When in reality, I love you, Andrew, but let's be honest, 0 chance of the title this year.
Listen,
0
jokes.
chance. No.
Well,
I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm being like legitimate. Like you watch more basketball than any of us do. Even you have you say there's 0 chance at a title. But the Knicks Twitter, Knicks YouTube comments, insane. They're just like, we are going to win this year. When it's just emphatically not true. They're not even going to get past the East.
I don't think we're going to win the whole thing, but you got to understand. A team, we were picking in the lottery the last how many years? The team was projected to win 22 games, which is, a lot of games below 500. We were not expected to even be in the play-in, just the play-in tournament, being between the 6 and the 10 seeds would have been good enough. That would have been a success. Not 2 seeds above that. We were only projected to win 22 games this year. We have 34 right now. We are defying odds. We're not going to win no championship, but this lays the foundation for maybe this offseason, next offseason, or a few years down the road, potentially us landing the big name free agent who's going to put us over the top, who we could plug in with this core that we already have. Look at what Brooklyn did. Yeah. Brooklyn was just an overachieving team with D'Lo and a bunch of no-names. D'Lo, at the time, Joe Harris was a no-name, but then they made the playoffs, got their asses handed to them by Philly in the first round, but they got Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and then bought in James Harden.
Yep.
Off of that one, of a first-round playoff exit. New York
Dude,
could do the same thing.
I mean, one would think. One would think. I'm just like, I look. Fandom doesn't bother me. Toxic fandom does bother me though. Toxic fandom does bother me, and it just seems to me like it's okay. We don't hate the Knicks here. We just tell the truth. We give you the real takes, and the real take is, unfortunately, in the past, free agents don't like to come to the New York Knicks. Will that change? Possibly. This could be the beginning of that, but you can't fight history. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about? What else is going on in the league? And any big draft rumors? Anything? Nah.
No, I haven't heard nothing. Nothing.
Nah. Who's a better quarterback? Kyle Trask or Mac Jones? It's really close. It's honestly like people have Mac Jones so overrated, but he actually might be like the sixth best quarterback in this draft.
I don't know. I mean, Trask, you got to understand. You think about the weapons that Jones had. I mean, Trask had Kadarius Toney. He had Kyle Pitts. Trask had some weapons too, dude. And he had some dudes. He had some dudes that are going to be NFL players on his defense.
But Trask is a more mobile quarterback.
That's what I mean. I mean, Trask.
Hold up. Let me see if I can freeze this. Let me see if I can freeze the thing because it already went past. But like Trask is just, dude. He's just so he has more potential. Say what you want about Trask. Yes, he had Kyle Pitts. He had all these weapons. But Mac Jones literally does not have the fundamentals to be a quarterback. Like, how do you I don't get it. What clout does he have? Well, I literally think someone saw the stat sheet and was like, man, he balled out. Didn't watch the game film. That's what I think is going on with Mac Jones. They didn't watch the game film on him because he was eyeing his receivers like literally. You can't do. I cannot emphasize enough how much you cannot do that in the NFL because these defenses will slaughter you as a quarterback if you do. If you lock on your receiver and the teams know it, it's over. That ball's getting picked. It's I don't know. It just frustrates me. It frustrates me because he's probably going to be the third pick overall. And then Justin Fields could fall into the teens, which is absurd. It just shows you how little scouts know. I'm not saying I know anything. Again, I'm just a random asshole on YouTube. But I watch the games. It's not that hard. Damn. I don't want to end on a negative note. But damn. Kyle Trask, I hope you go in the first round. I genuinely hope Kyle Trask is a first-round quarterback. No. Just so
first, he'll be a fourth.
No, just so he'll kind of be like the Lamar Jackson, not the Lamar Jackson, but maybe the Baker Mayfield to the Josh Rosen of Mac Jones. People be like, damn, I can't believe people were comparing, we're saying he was so much better. Man. Josh Rosen, R.I.P. Josh Rosen's career. How are the Mets doing?
We won yesterday.
Yeah, you guys did, didn't you? Yeah, that was pretty sad.
We won yesterday.
DeGrom slaughtered us.
He just did to you what he does to every team.
Yeah.
It's nothing new. He has a 0.4, 3.41 ERA. I mean, he's just being historically dominant as usual.
Yeah.
It's nothing I'm not used to seeing. Everybody else gets
your team was actually hitting.
Everybody else gets to see that, twice. If they're three times a year, if they're lucky. Me, I get to see it every fifth day. So, I'm just lucky I get to see it every fifth day.
You are lucky.
Dominance. Yeah.
You are lucky. And you know who else is lucky? Anyone who's still watching. Because you're lucky enough to get my last plug for Thursday's live stream, 7 p.m., right here in the channel. Andrew's Tennessee Titans are going to be picking someone in the NFL draft. They might trade up to get a quarterback. I know Andrew might shit a chicken if they draft a running back. But let's see what happens. Thursday, 7 p.m., right here. The entire draft live. We'll be covering it. We'll be reacting to it. We'll be having fun, too. Bootleg Mel Kiper might make an appearance. John Gonzalez, perhaps, might make an appearance and call in and react to the New York Giants ruining their future by picking someone they absolutely didn't need. We'll see what happens, though. 7 p.m. Thursday. Cannot emphasize that enough. Subscribe. Hit that like button. Notification bell is right there as well. We will see you next time. Andrew, say bye to the people.
Bye, people.
Ditto.
We will see you on Thursday.
We will. Remember, I will shave my head if Justin Fields goes to the Ravens. I will shave my head. You have my word. There's no way I'm getting out of this now. It's live. It's been broadcast. So I'll do it. It's not happening, but if it does, I'll like, scream. And then I'll go grab the clippers and shave my head. So stick around for that.